My friends, this is Mason Winfield again with another installment of Psi Friday with Mason. Happens to be the first Friday in November 2023. And, with a lot of these updates, sometimes there's something timely in the world I'm going to talk about. Sometimes it'll be something I just felt like talking about that week. And this is going to be a subject I'm probably going to return to quite a few times. This is a discussion of the imaginary friend. Now, I'm not going to make jokes about, people we trust and didn't turn out to measure up. That's not what this is about. No. One of the most interesting phenomena in psychology, I think, that overlaps into parapsychology, that overlaps into folklore, it overlaps into my work, is the phenomenon of the imaginary friend. There has been a lot of ink spilled over this. And I should tell you, we're not going to get it done in about a 5 to 6 minute program. But I'll start by saying that the imaginary friend, it's associated with children. Somewhere between the time children can't talk and the time they go to grade school, some of them have a very vivid companion whom no one else can see. And it gets to be interesting because it gets interesting from a perspective of a folklorist and parapsychologist. I'm not a parapsychologist, but I'm kind of familiar with the thinking of the discipline. It gets interesting to us because, first of all, the child is giving you a more distinct picture, a really developed picture of this friend. And the stories the child is telling you are very consistent. The kid can't remember what they had for breakfast, and yet they've got this elaborate friend, this story, this companion. Another thing interesting is some of the time, this little kid appears to have information that's given to them by the friend that you just think they couldn't have had it any other way. You just think they've got to be talking to something. And this something they talk to, nobody else can see. Now, I have a lot more to say about the imaginary friend. We'll keep coming back to this. But I should tell you, I've never had the opportunity to interview a living person, I mean a child, who's got an imaginary friend. No, it's always years later that the family goes, oh yeah, he had one, she had one. The individual never remembers this companion. I've had the chance to interview like 12-year-olds and I go, you remember any of this? And the kid will just go, no, they tell me it happened. I'm sure it did. But the picture of the family is so consistent that, something happened. And another thing that's really interesting about this imaginary friend, every once in a while, when you ask the kid, what's this friend look like? In my experience, the imaginary friend is never bigger than the kid. And when the kid's like 4, that's pretty small. And sometimes this imaginary friend is animal-like. It's, not evil or ugly or anything, but, I've heard of a couple of those. But in general, the being is friendly looking. And it might look like another child, one that people can't see. It might look like a small adult. I've heard of that too. It's a really mysterious picture you're getting with the imaginary friend. And, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think it's complex. And some psychologists like to include the phenomenon of what they call the personified toy. In other words, you got this rag doll or something that the kid tells a lot of stories about. Now, I remember my childhood vividly. I remember being 4. I remember the house we lived in when I was 4. I remember I had little stuffed toys. I remember giving them all personalities. I made a little pantheon out of them. They were like 5 bad guys and 8 good guys. And, you're an only child to learn to be very self-entertaining. But I was in no confusion, even at the age of 4, that these things were really alive. No doubt at all. They were toys and I played with them. That was it. So when a child believes they're experiencing an imaginary friend and they carry on as though it might be real, I think that's a very precious time for everybody in their family. Be very cautious, be subtle, get as much out of them as you can, because this is an interesting phenomenon. And my last word is that the imaginary friend is not considered damaging or dangerous. I know a lot of us would think, well, somebody got to be a wacko when they're going to grow up to be Jeffrey Dahmer or something. Not likely. Some very prominent, famous people have had imaginary friends as children, vivid, including the Irish poet William Butler Yeats, one of my favorites, and Winston Churchill, the great politician and prime minister. And those guys didn't turn out too bad. So the imaginary friend is considered a sign of creativity and maybe artistic talent and imagination too. So anyway, signing off. We'll see you at the next time.